Hello Canada, welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Tagai. Well, it seems that Trump is giving us a little bit of reprieve. He is pushing back the deadline for the tariffs for another month and a bit, although that's not written in stone. And then we're going to dabble on to the nastiest possible leader a country could want, Mr. Carney, and we're going to expose him. Now, there is also a viral video going around. I actually gave him space on one of my episodes a while ago because he ended up going from where I had left off down another tangent and finding all of this illicit money that was going into this ad campaign to destroy anybody who is not a Liberal or NDP. I'm going to finish a tangent that he left kind of dead and expose the truth of Brookfield. But first, let's start with Trump.
Mr. President, can you clarify the Canada-Mexico tariffs? You had put that 30-day pause.
Yeah.
You just referred to
25%.
25%. When does it go into effect?
April 2nd.
April 2nd for Canada-Mexico.
Correct. And for everything.
Well, we have the fentanyl-related is a pause. If they can prove to the president they've done an excellent job, that's what they first do in 30 days.
Have you guys seen any
But then the
changes?
overall is April 2nd. So the big transaction is April 2nd, but the fentanyl-related things, they're working hard on the border. At the end of that 30 days, they have to prove to the president that they've satisfied him to that regard. If they have,
It's gonna be
then
hard
he'll
to
give them a pause, or he won't. But
It's going
that's
to be
up
hard
to
to
him. We'll see.
satisfy. We lose 300,000 people a year to fentanyl. Not 100, not 95, not 60 like you read. You know, you've been reading it for years. We lost, in my opinion, over the last couple of years, on average, maybe close to 300,000 people dead. And the families are ruined. You know, when they lose a daughter, when they lose a son, the families are never the same. You're never going to be the same. So you're talking about 1 million people. But when the daughters die, I see it, daughters die and the sons die because of fentanyl. And in some cases, I don't even know they're taking it. They're buying something else and it's laced with fentanyl and they end up dying. And I've known many people who've lost children to fentanyl and for other reasons, but to fentanyl, it's such a big killer. And those people are never the same people. I mean, I've seen people that for the rest of their lives, they're not the same people. They're so different, it's not even believable. Dynamic people, happy people they die a miserable death. And that's because of the crap that comes in through China and through Mexico and through Canada. A lot of it comes through Canada. Look, we support Canada. $200 billion a year in subsidies, one way or the other. We let them make millions of cars. We let them send us lumber. We don't need their lumber. We're going to free up our lumber. Lee's going to do the head of environmental. We're going to free up our lumber. We have the best lumber there is. We don't need their lumber. What do we need their lumber for? When you look at we subsidize them $200 billion a year.
So he goes into how he talked to Trudeau and how Trudeau had absolutely no answers to any of the questions because he's dumber than a sack of hammers. Let's move on to Carney. I still don't understand how he got this far. I really thought that the open-ended free media of the internet would have stopped this, especially since a year and a half ago it started to become more and more apparent how the mainstream was lying. Don't believe the polls. They're bullcrap. They're all bullcrap. They're trying to pull what they did with Camilla down in the States here. Make sure you get out and vote. We must decimate this party We need a majority, if possible, a super majority, so we have the power to open up the books and start holding politicians to account, because I am sure if done proper, even a few conservatives are going to be exposed and tossed. But that's another story. Let's listen to the evil Mr. Carney get exposed.
The vice chairman at Brookfield Asset Management prior to
the chair. I was the chair.
Sorry. In the fall, they moved their head office from Toronto to New York. Did you approve of that decision, and what does this say about your commitment to growing Canada's economy and betting on Canada as of now?
Okay. So two things. I'll just correct a few factual things. One, I was chair of Brookfield Asset Management. I ceased to be chair on the 15th, I think, of January. The formal decision of the board happened
November
after...
1st, 2024, Brookfield confirms plan to move its head office to New York.
I ceased to be on the board.
December 1st, 2024, Mark Carney writes a letter communicating the unanimous decision made by Carney and the board he chaired to move the headquarters from Canada to the US. And here's documents to prove it.
The formal decision of the board happened after I ceased to be on the board.
This man. This is the epitome of evil, people. They did this with Trudeau. The media covered up everything, every scandal. The police helped. The infiltration is so deeply embedded in our system. We need a Doge here. We need it badly. Now, as for that viral video going around, I can't remember the guy's name, Rick something. Very good videos. The guy really does good research. He impresses me every time I watch him. Keep it up, buddy, in case you're watching. Yeah, awesome. We need as many of us out there as possible to get the word out. So here is one of the pages that he used, and I'm just going to finish taking you down the rabbit hole he stopped on to point out the money, and I'm going to expose Brookfield. So this is from the Stanford Law School Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. This is the summary. Brookfield Asset Management Incorporated. Brookfield is one of the world's largest alternative asset management company. It focuses on direct control investments in real estate, renewable power, infrastructure, credit, and private equity. Its stock is traded on the New York Stock Exchange. In its April 2nd, 2013, 40F Brookfield disclosed a civil action brought by a public prosecutor in Brazil against a Brookfield subsidiary relating to allegations that the subsidiary made payments to third parties in Brazil, and those payments were used to pay municipal officials to obtain permits and other benefits. From a complaint related to this action, the SEC opened an investigation into the matter. Brookfield, in a later filing, disclosed that the DOJ was also investigating the matter, with each agency seeking information and Brookfield cooperating. Brookfield engaged outside counsel to investigate the allegations. This is where I'm going to keep going. In June 2015, the SEC informed Brookfield in writing that the investigation was concluded and that the agency did not intend to recommend any enforcement action. The last mention of the DOJ investigation was made in a 6K on November 13, 2015, so it assumed that the investigation has also concluded. So, where does that leave us? Wow, that is just another opening to the rabbit hole of what is Brookfield. And the best part about exposing this is I get to show you the carbon credit crap system they are trying to impose on the world. It is a socialist takeover to make sure that the rich can rule over the ashes of the poor. This is a Reuters article. How Canada's Brookfield snatched bargain assets amid Brazil panic. Sao Paulo. Reuters reports. Rampant corruption scandals and deep recession soured many foreign investors on Brazil in recent years, but one Canadian group saw an opportunity. Brookfield Asset Management Incorporated and its subsidiaries have made nearly a dozen major acquisitions there since 2013. The companies have spent about $10 billion on energy, infrastructure, and real estate assets few others would touch due to the legal, political, and economic risks involved. A crisis is a good time to find value, said a person close to the group who called Brookfield a contrarian investor. That includes buying assets from companies entangled in the blockbuster car wash investigation, which jailed dozens of businessmen and politicians. The deals confirm Brookfield's reputation as one of the strongest-stomached investors in Brazil. In 2016, for example, Brookfield Infrastructure Partners LP led a $5.2 billion acquisition of a pipeline operator from Petróleo Brasileiro SA, the state-controlled oil company at the heart of the car wash scandal. Recently, another Petrobras pipeline network with half the capacity fetched a top bid of around $8 billion from other investors. Bargain hunting Brookfield gave that deal a pass. There's more into that on a future episode. We're going to move on to the slash and sell. I'm going to give you guys an explanation of how this works, especially down in Brazil. The media likes to tell you that Bolsonaro is an evil man, and they've been trying to slander him ever since the coup of Lula has taken control of the government. Lula is a fascist who actually performed a coup d'etat. He hates X because X was a tool that started to free the nation by allowing people to have a voice, to show how the corruption and fascism is destroying that nation and impoverishing all the people. Elon is being charged down there, and again, the mainstream is trying to make him out to look like he is in the wrong and causing election interference, when all he's trying to do is give the country back to the people. Now, a majority of the population down there have no idea what internet is. They have no voices. They are the first ones to be trampled and ran off of their lands. And Brookfield is king at doing this to the people. So Bolsonaro, Musk, and a few others have launched a lawsuit against this fascist government. Against the lawsuit and charges that the fascist government of Lula is trying to do to them. They want total control so they can use the people as peasants. This is what's going to happen to us up here if we keep allowing the media to lie and put politicians like Trudeau the captain and replace them with even worse like Carney the general. So now that we got that out of the way, let's move on to some of the practices of Brookfield. Slash and sell. How financial giant Brookfield and its big national backers profited from deforestation and the abuse of indigenous peoples' rights in Brazil. Summary findings. A Canadian asset manager, part run by green finance champion Mark Carney, cleared thousands of football fields worth of tropical forest in Brazil, our investigation can reveal. An estimated 9,000 hectares of deforestation, the legality of which could not be proven by Brookfield Asset Management, took place on 8 farms owned and managed by Brookfield's soybean farming empire. The forest clearance took place in the Cerrado, Brazil's tropical savanna, between 2012 and 2021. Now, I'm sure you guys remember hearing lots of this, not a few years ago, when they were showing pictures from satellites of the forest burning. In fact, the turd Trudeau himself was using this to help push his green agenda, when the truth of the matter, which our news should have been talking about, was the links to him, Carney, and the WEF and Brookfield, that they were the ones responsible for doing the said burning. Moving on. According to an analysis of satellite imagery from Brazil's Space Institute, before the properties were sold off in late 2021 in a slash-and-sell move. The empire also owned a farm whose managers sought to evict indigenous peoples from the land they claimed to own. Brookfield's involvement in deforestation and human rights abuses contrast with its very own environmental, social, and governance, that famous ESG policy, and Mr. Carney's public image. We operate with the highest ethical standards, conducting our business with integrity, Brookfield wrote in its latest annual report. But Brookfield's owner-operator-investor model means it could have profited 3 times from the forest destruction in Brazil. From the sale of commodities, then from the sale of financial instruments derived from these commodities, and then from fluctuations in the price of its resale assets, such as farms. Brookfield and its biggest banking backers, listen carefully, HSBC, Deutsche Bank, and Bank of America, signed up to the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero GVANTS in April 2021. The alliance commits its signatories to taking immediate action to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. Yet, deforestation on Brookfield farms released an estimated 600,000 tons of CO2 in the 9 years to June 2021, destroying parts of a crucial carbon sink and biodiversity hotspot. These are some of the fines that Brookfield has had to pay, which was listed in the video that was done earlier by Rick or whatever his name. So here's the company name they go by. Here is the actual parent company. And then on the right is the actual fine. Now, we're just going to take a couple. We'll start off with the insurance. HomeServe paid $30.6 million fine in a settlement of a finding by the FCA that the company had long-running issues with failing to treat customers fairly when selling home emergency and repairs insurance, with lack of oversight of sales and remuneration that promoted selling of unsuitable products. Most embarrassing part about reading all of this is right here where it says, parent company, home headquarters are in Canada. Another one that they did was they were supposed to have redone the motors in these train engines to meet the new standards that they helped push in place. They got caught lying. So I'll just give you a brief of what they said. The Environmental Protection Agency and the Department of Justice announced a settlement with Genesee and Wyoming Railroad Services Incorporated. See what I mean by how they hide their name? That is owned by Brookfield and numerous affiliated companies for a violation of Clean Air Act locomotive regulations. The complaint alleged that the GWS RSI's locomotives with rebuilt engines failed to meet the applicable EPA emission standards, blah, 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 blah. And the other video that's going viral is also listing about how there was also an involvement, which ended up being another investigation, which is, I couldn't really find the settlement on it, but they were storing toxic chemicals in abandoned rail cars on dead track. And it was not good. Leaky, nasty mess. So, Google, or I mean X, has been mislabeled, and even right now with Doge, the media is going insane trying to tell you how evil and bad this man is. He's making zero profit off this. In fact, the damage that has been done to all of his companies from the green zealots is costing him money, but he doesn't care. And he said it 1,000 times. It's his duty, as it is yours and mine, to protect free speech and the access to information. And this is what's going on in Brazil. Now, Brazil, a lot of you may not know, is the birthplace, yes, the birthplace of Carney's sweet company, Brookfield. And I'm going to make sure that I post this Wikipedia page. And I went through it because Wikipedia, you can't trust it. I went through it. For the most part, they did a pretty good job explaining where Brookfield comes from. They left out a lot. There's some gray areas, but for the most part, they give you a good idea of the roots of the company and what it made to be. But it's our job to make sure we follow each one of those spurs to find out where the corruption leads and the buyouts and the governments that are taken over in the process. So this is a really good article, and it hits home on what happens when Brookfield comes to your country. Flooded houses, plastic bottles, and trash all around. Dead animals, families without homes, and flooded agricultural lands. It would seem that this is the scene of some natural tragedy, such as which recently happened in Chile. But it is not. It is the scene unfolding in Laranjal, a municipality of the Zona de Mata, which is the forest zone of Minas Gerais, as a result of the implementation of the Beira da Bruna Dam project, now under the auspices of a Canadian company called Brookfield Renewable Energy. The Beira da Bruna Dam is just one more case of how dams are implemented in Brazil with no democratic process nor respect for environmental laws. Contrary to law, there were no public forums to inform and solicit opinions from those who live in the region. Environmental organs conceded licensing without the knowledge of the majority of families. For example, on September 6, 2009, Shelley Carnero, Vice Secretary for the Minas Gerais, Secretary of the Environment, conceded a license of operation ad referendum, a secret act with no publication of content. Now, do you see what I mean by how Musk's X is needed down there, and how this evil dictatorship that took power is trying to remove that from the people? After a lawsuit promoted by the families affected under the guidance of entities such as the Church's Land Commission, the Movement of Those Affected by Dams, MAB, and Caritas, the license was suspended. However, the company continued to fill the lake and generate electricity clandestinely by the end of December. In January of this year, though, through a direct intervention on part of the Accio Neves, governor of Minas Gerais, the licensing was again granted. The Beira da Bruna has wreaked environmental havoc since its beginning. The dam's lake is filled with trash, mainly plastic bottles and tree trunks, of up to 15 meters. The fish are contaminated by the emission of methane gas coming from the inundation of the local forest. Those species which are able to resist the gas become unsuitable for human consumption. But the negligence on the part of the state and local government has direct, damaging consequences, principally for the populations of those living in the affected cities. Sebastião Alex Dias Machada, one of those who has been affected by the dam, stated, Since the beginning of these negotiations, we have been psychologically tortured. We continue to suffer today. It goes on, and really, I suggest you read this article. It will bring tears to your eyes, and your heart will hurt. But sometimes that's what that is what it takes for somebody's courage to swell. These companies are evil. Now, why all this for a dam? Or in this case, for piles of dams? Because this is how they take over democratic nations. Let me explain. I'm sure everybody's heard of the green credit. Quebec likes to brag about it so often. Oh, it's credit. We got credits with the Californians. Yeah, oui. It's all bullshit. Companies like these guys who sell coal to China and shut ours down, who sell oil to China and shut ours down, all of the nasty things that they try to say we can't do and they tax us on, they can. Why? Because they own all these dams and they have carbon credit. You see how this works? If you look back, you could actually see that they already, right when they started pushing the bullcrap green agenda and started teaching it in schools and brainwashing the public, they were already trying to take over dams. They were trying to manipulate the companies that could get grants to get windmills and solar panels. This is how they take over nations like ours. So they can get on the stage and say, oh, yeah, of course we have some. We deal in some that, oil and gas and some coal. But overall, we are green. We actually have credit to our name. We are zero emission. What they don't tell you about is the hundreds of thousands and millions of people who have no land because it's been flooded by a dam that wasn't even needed. But they got their credit. They don't talk about the bush and the forests that they burn in their wake in order to sell soybeans. And then build a false market up and then sale it for profit. This is how they make money on the backs of people. And all of us peasants are going to pay for it, just like the peasants in Brazil. The media, mainstream media, is democracy's enemy. Now, this even gets deeper, and it gets darker, and it hits home. Now, this is just one little example of what the media isn't telling you that's happened right here in your back door in Canada, right at your parliament, that nobody would have known about if it wasn't for a couple journalists that went, wait a minute, Brookfield's trying to get into Canadian pensions? And the media tried to hush it as quick as they could. But I'm here to bring it back into the light so everybody can acknowledge how evil Carney is. Trudeau government faces backlash over $50 billion pension fund deal. Toronto-based investment giant Brookfield Asset Management has initiated discussions to create a $50 billion fund primarily aimed at boosting investments in domestic assets. This move has already stirred political controversy as its timing and connections to prominent figures within both the Canadian government and Brookfield itself. The proposal seeks financial backing from several of Canada's largest pension funds and the federal government. According to sources familiar with the discussions, Brookfield is aiming for a $36 billion commitment from our pension funds and $10 billion from our federal government, with Brookfield contributing a whopping $4 billion of its own funds. Mark Carney's role. The fund proposal has drawn significant attention, especially as it coincides with the appointment of Mark Carney, Brookfield's chair, as an economic advisor to the governing Liberal Party. Carney, the former governor of both the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England, has taken a central role in advising Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on fiscal policy, and we've seen where that has taken us. This has led to accusations from the opposition parties that the lines between the private interests and public policy are becoming dangerously blurred. Do you remember hearing about any of this in the media? Do you? I mean, considering Carney's running, shouldn't the media be talking about this, considering how he just lied straight out about what he did with Brookfield moving to the States? Nope, not a word. Crickets. Conservative MP Michelle Rempel-Gardner expressed outrage over the developments, posting on X, "You have got to be effing kidding me. The brazenness of it. Mark Carney is the chair of Brookfield. Trudeau just put him in charge of fiscal policy, and now this? We will keep fighting to keep your hands off of our pension." They want in, and they're going to take this money and they're going to invest it in what they can make the most dividends off of. And as they build up a false economy, when it crumbles, they get away with billions or trillions in profit in their banks. In the meantime, Canada falls to pieces. And that is when they get their checkmate. That is when all these demonstrous ravens and vultures swoop in to feed off our carcasses. This is already happening in other countries around the world, people. The media just doesn't like to talk about it. That's why I need you to like, share, and subscribe, and pass the word, and try and get people to listen to my annoying voice. It is worth it. It is absolutely worth it. Now, do you want to see how great, how amazing our government is with our pension right now?
Nice. The Canada Pension Plan Investment Board has recently sold its 29% stake in 360 Park Avenue South, New York City for just $1 to Boston Properties. This reflects a wider trend of decreasing values in office spaces. The Canada Pension Plan also offloaded a 45% stake in Santa Monica Business Park for $38 million, marking a 75% discount from its 2018 purchase price. The commercial real estate sector, influenced by factors like remote work and rising interest rates, is facing challenges, with predictions of increased vacancies and potential long-term property value downturns from institutions like Goldman Sachs and Moody's. Like and follow us for more daily headlines.
So, how many billions did our pensions lose already from mismanagement? And who was the lucky bugger to buy that $40-some million share for $1? Do you want to guarantee, or do you want to bet that they're all investments, or know somebody? These people use the banking system to hide who they are and hide their money. Like I posted in one of my earlier videos here yesterday or the day before on the Seagrams. These guys rip off money, they launder it, and they hide it away in tax-free havens. We need Doge. We need a super majority here in Canada. We need to decimate the Liberal NDP, and I'm sure a few Conservatives are going to tumble once we start exposing all of the corruption. But we have to decimate them. It has to happen. But we also have to rebuild these parties because we need to have voices from across the nation, and we need to ensure that there's always a credible opposition to hold the government to account. Canada's been decimated. I want to leave you off on one small little clip at the end of Trump's meeting today. And every time you hear him say Biden, I want you to close your eyes and say Trudeau and see the comparison of who these people are.
This country has gotten bloated and fat and disgusting and incompetently run. I think we had the worst president in the history of our country. He just left office. I think he's a disgrace, what he's done to our country by allowing millions of people to come into our country like that. And all of the other things, the inflation, which he caused because of energy and stupid spending, to spend hundreds of millions, trillions and trillions of dollars on the Green New scam, a total scam. I have the best energy people, the best environmental people in the world around this table, and they can't even believe he got away with it. And then in leaving office to send $20 billion here and $20 million there and 10 million and 5 million, and they couldn't spend the money fast enough, and let's get it out before Trump gets in, let's just get it out to anybody. And this is a disgrace to our nation, and you don't write the fair thing, but look, you know, the good news, the people see it, and that's why we won the election by so much. Thank you very much, everybody.
Couldn't have said it better myself. What did Trudeau just throw away of ours? $5 billion to Ukraine? To a war that Trump is trying to stop? That the world wants over? Well, that the citizens of the world want over? He's just throwing money around. He shouldn't even have access to our checkbook. But he does. Why? Because of his illegal prorogation of Parliament and this obscene bullcrap that we have of a so-called leadership race. And the media blitzing and pounding nothing but liberal, good liberal bullcrap. It's insanity in the worst degree. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. There's a lot there to absorb. I hope you like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to punch that notification bell so that you don't miss a future episode. Until next time, you've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, Alias Tagay. We will see you soon.